You are very welcome to the opening of the academic year at the Eindhoven University of Technology 2020-21. Hello, my name is Barry Fitzgerald and I'm the host for this talk show to mark the opening of the academic year at the Eindhoven University of Technology 2020-21. Now, this talk show format is a big change from the traditional large gathering that we would have every year. And of course, this is in place because of the restrictions associated with the coronavirus. Nevertheless, this promises to be a unique opportunity and moment in the academic year and promises to be a great opportunity for discussion, demonstrations, and lots more besides. And of course, we'll have some very important and interesting guests. And let's meet some of them right now. And we have them on the couch. And our first guests are the State Secretary for Infrastructure and Water Management, Stientje van Veldhoven, and the President of TUE, Robert Jan Smits. You are both very welcome to this talk show event to mark the opening of the academic year. Now, I just want to get something out of the way, first of all. You both know each other from your past. Could you maybe elaborate on that, Robert Jan?
Well, we know each other from Brussels. We'll be working closely together on European science and innovation policy.
Okay, and how long did you work together when you were there?
I think I worked at the European Commission for about 3 years.
Yep.
So we had a lot of opportunity to work together on these crucial issues. And certainly it opened my heart for everything that has to do with science and technology. So it was a wonderful period.
Fantastic. Now, of course, we find ourselves in the midst of a very challenging moment in human history with regards to the current coronavirus situation. And I just want to ask both of you briefly, how have you personally experienced the corona crisis over the past few months? State Secretary?
Well, it has, of course, been a period which has been very hectic in a number of issues. Of course, a lot of decisions had to be made. So that was one part of it. On the other hand, we also started working from home. Since I am responsible for public transport and we discouraged people to use public transport and we asked them to work at home as much as possible. Of course, I did it myself too. So I worked from home actually a couple of months, never going to the office. And I think, like many other people that have been working from home most of the time, that can sometimes be a challenge. You have 2 teenagers working from home as well. So I experienced that personally. I also experienced the way in which different sectors, different people come together to find solutions. And there again, Robert Jan and I met for the way in which we could start up education again, because we all felt the need to start up the education process again. And so how can we do that in a context of limited public transport? I think this also shows what the Netherlands can do by working together, coming together. And so it has also been a very fruitful experience on some issues.
Okay, very, very good. Now, Robert Jan, it's fair to say that this has been an unprecedented situation, as the State Secretary has mentioned, and our own personal experience with regards to that. And of course, the members of the TUE family have also had their own personal experiences in relation to this. And how has TUE dealt with the effects of the coronavirus thus far?
Well, I'm extremely impressed by how this university has been dealing with the crisis. Because don't forget, overnight we had to close the labs and the buildings, and we had to go online with our education. And that required an enormous efforts, day and night work by staff, by students, by everyone. And I was very impressed how this was done in a teamed up way. And it shows the power of the TUE community, which is so well known. And we did it together, and we are still doing it together. So I can only express my gratitude to everyone for doing a first-class job.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And looking at what might happen in the future, and particularly with the upcoming academic year, what is the outlook for TUE for the year ahead?
Well, it's clear that the COVID-19 crisis will have an impact on Strategy 2030, so the strategy which has been defined for our university. There will be much greater emphasis put now on blended learning, online education, on cyber security. Let's be clear, we have to minimize our vulnerability towards cyber attacks. We also will intensify more than ever before our cooperation with industry in the Brainport area, because putting growth and getting growth back into the economy will be a top priority for the current government and for the next one.
Absolutely. It's very, very important to try and address these issues with the upcoming year ahead. And I suppose it's also a moment to reflect on not only the current crisis, but other crises that we have to deal with. And State Secretary, what do you think we need to get out of this current crisis? How do we remove ourselves from this?
Well, we are indeed, next to the COVID crisis, also in a climate crisis. And this crisis is ongoing at the same time as the COVID crisis. And we see that we tend to focus on the problems, but it's also good to start focusing on the opportunities. And I think one of the opportunities which could combine our efforts to comply with the agreement that we made in Paris with the need for economic growth is to start focusing on the circular economy. This is an economy where lots of businesses will find new business opportunities while reducing CO2. And to give you an idea of the scale of it, this could be about half of all our CO2 emissions. So there's lots of opportunities there, and I think it would be fantastic if we could couple our green growth with our climate goals and ensure that we achieve this economic growth through climate neutral, climate friendly growth.
Because this aspect in regards to the CO2, many people can refer to it as a hidden CO2 bomb. And for people, just to give them a better understanding, what exactly is this hidden CO2 bomb for people who don't really know what it actually means?
And I fully understand, because when we think about climate change, we usually see this big coal-fired power plant with a big cloud above it. And we think if we close down that coal-fired power plant, or if we change to electric cars, then we will more or less have solved the climate problem. Well, that is not true. About nearly half, 45% of all our CO2 emissions are related to the production of our goods and food. So if we only look towards energy, we're only solving half of the problem. So we need to look beyond energy, especially in a world where the world population is growing to 10 billion people, and all of those people will not only be using more energy, but also more stuff. And if we start reusing our resources, we can radically cut down the CO2 emissions related to products and food. So that is why we need this circular economy, steel, aluminium, plastics, cement. If we can make big progress in those sectors, that's about as important as decarbonizing transport, to give you an idea.
Yeah, that's something that I have to say, when you put those numbers on it, it's staggering, to be honest. It really is, when you actually think about it. And the question then is, how do we ensure that we can operate in a sustainable manner with regards to sourcing raw materials for the products that we're going to need for the population that could be 10 billion people in the future? Yeah,
to give you an idea, the Earth has a certain capacity for regenerating resources, and it's what we call Earth Overshoot Day. And it was last weekend. Last weekend, the world as a whole used as many resources as the Earth can regenerate in a year. For the Netherlands, if this was a crowd, I would ask you, what do you think the date for the Netherlands is? Now I'm going to ask you, what do you think?
Got a clue.
3rd of May. So on the 3rd of May, the Netherlands has used all of the resources that the Earth can refurbish in a year. So what do we need to do? We need to start looking at the beginning of the product, design. We need to start looking design for reuse, for repairability, for recycling. So what we need to do to change this is to start thinking from the beginning, how I'm going to make this product. That's of course why I'm here, because you know a lot about how do you make products, and we need a lot of knowledge development to start making products differently so that we can start reusing them differently
so don't solve it at the end, solve it at the beginning.
Solve it at the beginning, not at the end.
Yep, absolutely, completely. Have that element in the design aspect at the start.
Crucial.
It's not just about having a product out there, it's about having a responsible product out there.
Absolutely, and not just about recycling the plastic bottle, but designing your table, your shoes, your Fairphone. Fairphone is a fantastic, everybody knows the iPhone. If something gets broken, it's difficult or very expensive to repair it. There are also phones that are made to be repaired. And then you can just reuse the resources, and you don't need to go back to Africa every time again to get new resources. So we need to start thinking differently about how do we design our products for reuse, for repairability, for recycling afterwards.
It's re-engineering society and the economy.
It's re-engineering. So it's going to be a huge challenge.
And opportunities.
Absolutely, presents lots of opportunities. And another product that, well, lots of people use every single day is the automobile or a car. And the concept of car sharing can also help to address raw material usage. And why is circular economy so important in regards to, or having this as part of that current transition, the idea of using car sharing?
Yeah, to give you, many people, when we talk about circular economy, the first thing that people think about perhaps is recycling. And they think I recycle my product and it's fine. If you don't use a different product, because you're all using the same car, instead of having 24 cars, you have one car, then you also need less resources. So it's also about smart use of the resources. If we start car sharing, we need less resources for electric cars, and we use them a lot better. So it has very different opportunities. So it's about designing, it's about smart business models, and it's about, what you say, economic re-engineering.
Yep.
And we're going to need a lot of knowledge and a lot of business people and a lot of smart people start getting this off the ground. And the government in the Netherlands is very committed because we want to go to a 100% circular economy in 2050.
Well, it's great to hear that the government is so passionate with regards to the circular economy. And as the State Secretary has mentioned, it's important that we address these issues in relation to waste and the environment. But it's not just about materials and the materials that we should use. We also have to be thinking as well about energy. And the State Secretary has mentioned that it's 50% of CO2 is related to energy. So we need to be innovative with some of the ways that we store energy, how we can access energy, and of course to recycle the residues associated with it. And the new TUE Institute, EIRES, the Eindhoven Institute for Renewable Energy Systems, well, this could prove vital. Now, Robert Jan, what is the thinking behind the establishment of EIRES?
Well, this university is known not just in the Netherlands, but worldwide for its research, top-notch research on energy conversion and storage. And since the government has declared the energy transition, the energietransitie, as top priority, we have said, let's make our contribution as TUE. Let's put the best brains of this university together in an institute and make sure, together with the industry in the region, that we make a big contribution. And that is what this institute is all about. And we are extremely grateful that the State Secretary is inaugurating and launching the institute today.
Absolutely, it's fantastic to have you here to mark this occasion. And I think it's a good opportunity now to learn a little bit more about EIRES. So to tell us a little bit more about EIRES, I'd like to introduce our next guest, and that is the Scientific Director of EIRES, that is Professor Richard van de Sanden. Richard, you're very welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. So I've got to ask you a question. What is EIRES going to be working on, and how will EIRES be different from other energy institutes?
Yes, as Robert Jan already explained, EIRES will focus, of course, on conversion and storage of, let's say, renewable energy. As we all know, renewable energy fluctuates seasonal as well as from day to day. But EIRES, let's say, approach is to look into the technologies and of small size, let's say, conversion and storage devices. And why is that? Because if you look at smaller size units, you can actually learn much quicker, because you're going to scale by the numbers rather than by the size. Again, maybe mentioning what the State Secretary also did, the large coal plants, of course, take a lot of money to actually do, and you don't need them so much, of so many, so what happens is that you are learning very slowly. That also actually, if you let's say start developing these smaller size units, you can connect them locally also. So you can connect to the decentralized renewable energy generation, and in that sense also start coupling sectors. Now, even another, and it was already mentioned, so a lot of, let's say, the CO2 emissions are connected to not only energy, but also to goods, chemicals. Now, these smaller devices can actually also aim for making our future materials and chemicals, which we need, because fossil fuels and fossil feedstock will actually disappear. So we have to reinvent this. And there the connection with circularity comes. So CO2, using CO2 circular, which is maybe the product from synthetic kerosene, because we will, go on vacation to let's say far distance. Now, that being said, a very important, let's say, device with which we can do this is by producing, for instance, hydrogen from electricity. That's basically the first step for making all base chemicals, but also, let's say, the kerosene. And that's one of the iconic projects of let's say, EIRES, to work on the smaller size electrolyzer, to actually get quick kernelers, steep down, and actually introduce this and diffuse it into society and industry.
And it's a business opportunity.
And it's, of course, and that's like Robert Jan already mentioned, it's of course the high-tech which actually comes in here, and you're here in the region, the smartest region actually.
And you're going to design it for circularity in
Yes,
itself.
of course, yes.
Always good to hear,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely. And in relation to the electrolyzer development, well, Richard recently visited the head office of the VDL Group to sign a memorandum of understanding between EIRES, TUI and VDL. Now let's take a look at the signing of this memorandum of understanding. Let's hear from VDL, and also please pay special attention for a very nice message of congratulations at the end of the video.
So future employability is a very important topic for us all. And I think this topic, this energy transition and the role hydrogen plays and what's needed for that fits to this ecosystem. And we, VDL EDG, is part of this ecosystem. And this ecosystem, to be clear, is Brainport. I also sometimes call it the larger Eindhoven ecosystem. And the larger Eindhoven ecosystem goes from Groningen to Leuven to Aachen to Rotterdam, but the center is here. The potential for our company is huge in the sense that I think we'll create machinery, complex machinery that fits in this ecosystem here in Eindhoven. And I'm sure we can deliver kernel technology that's packaged as a product that goes all over the world. It'll take a long time still before we have stuff in production, but it fits needless to what I think we can offer in terms of competence development. Maybe even we can contribute to basic research, but the main interest is fill our factories with advanced work for the future, because we know how to deal with complicated manufacturing. So I think it's hugely important, not only for the world, because we have to go through this transition, but also for Holland and also for VDL.
Dear friends of our university, starting off the academic year of this way bestranges me very much, even though we are used to this kind of digital happening since March this year. An extraordinary situation, but extraordinary situations, that's where Eindhoven is built upon. It's still a remarkable day. I congratulate University with the start of EIRES Eindhoven, the Institute for Renewable Energy Systems, an important initiative to help realize energy transitions so much needed in this world. Again, the university proves once more to be the beating heart of the Brainport Eindhoven region, combining research, talent and collaboration with the industry, but also the public partners. All this with an international scope. I wish everybody involved in EIRES a lot of success, and I'm looking forward to the results of your good work.
And it's fantastic to see in that video that this memorandum of understanding is now in place between EIRES and VDL Group. And of course, fantastic as well to see a message of congratulations from the Mayor of Eindhoven, John Yurtsma. Now, I am standing here beside something, and we've changed locations in the studio. I'm standing beside what is, I think it's a metal burner. Luckily, I'm here with someone who's going to explain how everything works, and that is the Scientific Director of EIRES. So, Richard, can you please explain how this device works?
Yes, Barry. This is actually very simple. It's in this case iron powder. Iron powder has been made from, let's say, iron oxide with renewable energy. And iron powder is a way to actually store energy, to actually make it possible to transport it over longer distances. What you will see here is that we are going to ignite the metal fuel, in this case iron, by just bringing it in contact with air. And then it's going to burn, and when it's going to burn, it's going to actually produce heat. And that's the way actually you can release the energy again, which you have put in by renewable energy.
And what's the association of such a device with EIRES?
Storage and conversion. So it's all about energy storage and conversion. As I told you, the intermittency of renewables is something we have to solve. And that is done by means of, let's say, converting this energy into a medium in which you can store energy. And metal fuels is a very dense actually energy medium to do this.
Fantastic. And I have one more question to ask you. How do we start this? Just to
That's
know.
very simple. Like with a candle, you have to push a button, and the button is here.
Fantastic. That's great. Now, I just invite you to take your seat once
Yes.
more. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Richard, for the explanation. Now, to mark the launch of EIRES, I'm going to ask the president of the Eindhoven University of Technology, Robert Jan Smits, to come forward. Now, Robert Jan, I'd ask you to officially invite the State Secretary to come forward and to turn on this very impressive device to launch EIRES.
Okay, dear State Secretary, I invite you to come forward and to press the button and launch the metal fuel, and as such, inaugurates EIRES. Please.
And to build up a little bit of suspense, I'm going to do a bit of a small countdown. We'll count down from 3 to 1, and then we'll press the button and launch EIRES.
I know I'm going to completely ruin your script now, but I just wanted to congratulate you all very, very much. I think one of the crucial questions of the climate transition, of the climate challenge that we face, is storing energy. So this institute is not a minute too late. So I'm very, very excited to be here to launch it officially.
Fantastic words, yes, absolutely. So are you ready to
I
launch
am,
it?
fully.
So let's go. 3, 2, 1.
Energy is all around us. Even so, it's often not in the right place or at the exact time we need it. But what if we combine new ways of looking at it with creative ways of storing and converting it? We can then transform electrons into hydrogen using novel electrolyzer systems. We can use high-performance reactors to make synthetic fuels and sustainable chemicals. We can burn metal powders to fuel our industry. And we can warm our cities with heat from thermochemical batteries. Our smart energy grid can transform, store, and trade energy carriers between all our devices every second across the globe. For us, this future is now. Working together with our Brainport partners, we create systems for sustainable energy storage and conversion. We provide key knowledge, high-tech engineering, and excellent research. We are EIRES, driving the energy revolution.
There you have it. You've just seen the official launch video for EIRES that looks absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure that EIRES are going to do some amazing research. We've got some new guests on the couch, and right now I've been joined by the Rector for TUE, Frank Byens, and the Vice President of TUE, Nicole Umlen. Very welcome to the opening of the academic year talk show. Now, it has been an eventful year, to say the least.
Yeah, I can
for
say that again.
the Netherlands, for the university, and for the world. And Frank, for you, what has been the most important lesson that you have learned over the past few months?
Well, I'm truly impressed by the enormous commitment that people have shown towards the university. This sudden change that we had to make from, say, the normal way of operation to a completely online setting has been an adventure. And many people have done an enormous job, a wonderful job in getting it done. Basically, we were able to shut down the university for 1 week and make this complete transition to online learning. That takes grit, that takes creativity, resilience, and I think that's really impressive that we've been able to do that. We've also paid a price for it. We have to realize that it was not easy to do that. And I think that the work pressure for a number of people has really increased significantly. So that's a concern that we have. And we're certainly not out of the situation because we have another year, the next academic year, which will not be that different from what we've had in Q4. But I'm looking forward to it nevertheless.
And for you, Nicole, what was the most important lesson that you've learned over the past few months?
I guess how important it is that we can be and work together. Science is a thing you do together, and studying, and also being a board member is really difficult to to do when you're not together in real life. Having said that, everybody has been so creative and so very well capable of creating this new concept of togetherness in the online world, and that's something we can be really proud of. It shows how strong our community actually is. We think it's very important to keep facilitating that, but it's the people themselves who did that, and it was very wonderful to see how we could do that, even though it still is very difficult. And I'm happy that now in the next academic year we will be able to come back to campus in a very small amounts of people, but we can get back to campus again.
And it's good to have that, to bring people back to the campus. And in terms of bringing people to the campus, just very quickly, how has the coronavirus affected student intake, Frank?
We're about at par with last year, so we're having about 2,100 first-year students. That's sort of what we had last year as well. What's good to see that is also that we have been able to maintain the international student population. There was a big concern internationally, also in the Netherlands, that we would lose the international students, but that didn't materialize. So it's really wonderful to see that we have this mixed population at the university.
And Nicole, for you, what would be the message you want to relay to the students and staff for this upcoming year?
Well, I would like to say we stay healthy in the very first place, and be careful and look after each other, but also have fun together. Last week we had a very nice introduction week, which was different than what we're used to, half online and half partly offline. But they had a wonderful week, and I hope that the coming year, especially for our new students and staff, will be a very good year. That's what I would like, but I would wish for everybody have a very good year.
I think that's a very good message, of course. And speaking of the students, I think this is a great opportunity to hear from the new Dean of the Bachelor College. So let's please welcome Professor Ines Lopez Arteaga to the talk show. You're very welcome, Ines, to the opening of the academic year talk show. So you've been the Dean of the Bachelor College. What is your ambition for being the Dean of the Bachelor College and for the year ahead, of course?
Well, my ambition is that in 2030, our university is known as a challenge-based learning university. And let me explain this. One of our core values is that research and education are intertwined. And this fits really nicely with challenge-based learning. So it's like a natural step for us to move towards this challenge-based learning concept. And there are three very important keywords here. One is rigorous knowledge, so attention for in-depth knowledge. Two is diversity. So we want to have diverse learning paths and diverse lecturing paths. You need to see it, students and lecturers are learning partners. So they learn together, basically. And the third keyword is ownership, because the main thing students will learn here is learn to learn, which is the door to lifelong learning.
Absolutely, I completely agree with all the points you've said in terms of education, and particularly in terms of creating this hybrid learning environment and trying to appeal to all of the different types of students and different types of learners. But how has the coronavirus affected these plans, let's say, in terms of what you're aiming for with regards to 2030?
Yes, crazy enough, it has given us a boost. So an important ingredient in these developments is online education, digital education. And due to Corona, we had to do it. So we had to go online. And this means we have made huge steps in developing online educational material, online testing material. But I think more importantly, both students and lecturers know now how to collaborate online, how to interact online. So this opens a lot of opportunities for the students to engage in collaborative learning internationally, for example, with students overseas. And I see this as a very, very big opportunity for us for the future.
I think that's a very good point, particularly in regards to the boundaries that can be crossed in terms of the international boundaries, connecting students from different countries and different learning environments. And students really are the heartbeat of the campus, of the Eindhoven University of Technology. And the current student experience really is truly unique. So let's hear how the coronavirus has affected students during the current corona period.
In today's lecture, I will tell you about the simple pendulum.
We study at home.
I think it was quite difficult at the beginning to adjust to the corona situation. Having video lectures that I could watch any time of the day, or videos which I can exercise to inside and out. I think it all worked out pretty well in the end.
We had a lot of fun as a board to do online activities like the workout, but now we're able to see the members face to face again. We get that community feeling, which is really nice.
I miss having the students in my classroom, but this crisis has forced me to develop new ways of teaching, such as making these online videos, and they have their own merits, and it's very interesting to try new things.
So some great insights there from TUE students and one faculty member in relation to how the coronavirus has affected studies and education. And the same, of course, can be said with regards to the effect that the coronavirus has had on the work of researchers, as many of their projects have been abruptly interrupted during the course of the year. Now, Frank, in relation to research, what do you see are the highlights and challenges for the year ahead?
Well, the highlights essentially are made up by the results that individuals have, either as an individual or as part of a research team. And that can be the paper that you wanted to write. It could be a spin-off that you have created. It could be an algorithm that you have transferred to someone else. But that's really the individual or team results that people have, and I'm really looking forward to that again. I also hope that the institutes that we are creating, and we just launched EIRES, that the research programs of these institutes materialize and really come to fruition. I'm looking forward to that very much.
In terms of retaining excellence in scientific innovation, you need an influx of talent. Mm-hmm. So you need new researchers to bring new energy. And how will TUE continue to attract this talent?
Yeah. Talent is clearly what makes or breaks a university. It starts off with our students. It also relates to the PhD and postdoctoral scientists as well as the scientific staff that we have. The challenge that we have is that if you look at the enrollment that we have, in particular in the scientific positions, about 50% of the new hires are international. So the corona crisis makes that a bit more complicated because of the restrictions that we have in traveling. So that's one of the key challenges I think that we will face in the next half year or full year, to see whether we can still attract the international talent that we need as a university.
And TUE was in the news recently in relation to the Marie Curie Fellowship, which aims to increase the percentage of female faculty. Mm-hmm. But the Netherlands Institute for Human Rights recently said that this must change. And how will TUE continue with the Marie Curie Fellowships?
It's a bit unfortunate that they said so, because it was really a successful program. The Marie Curie Fellowship program clearly was targeted towards increasing the number of female scientists that we have at the university. And it addressed one particular issue, that is what we call the implicit gender bias. And it was successful. If you look over a period of 1 year, we basically have 100 new hires, and 50 out of them were male and 50 were female. So that's a wonderful result, I think. Nevertheless, I think we feel that we have to comply with the advice that the committee provided to us. We've said that if we can achieve a 30% threshold in female scientists, then we know that the minority is no longer considered to be a minority. So that's the way we will change the program. We will look at departments that do not meet that threshold, and then we look also at specific function group. And the idea is that about 50% of the vacancies that we have under these restrictions will then be put into the Marie Curie Fellowship program. We will now seek advice of the Institute, and we expect that we can actually implement it by the end of the year.
Okay, excellent. I would just like to reflect on the operations at the university. So Nicole, resilience is one of your core themes, and how resilient has TUE been in your eyes during this particular crisis?
I think it's obvious that we all think that TUE has been very resilient. people have done tremendous jobs to get everything working in March when we had to go from the offline environment to the online environment in less than a week. And not only the academic staff who did a great job, but also the support staff, for instance, the IT people and the people of education support had to work very, very hard to get everything done. And they did great. And we're very, very proud of that. Also the students, suddenly all courses were online and not everything worked perfectly in the first place. So, but they were patient and they helped in improving things. So yeah, we're really proud of that. And we still have a lot of things to do also in the next year. Ines already told you that we are continuing our blended learning. And we continue to improve that. So a lot of resilience will still be required, but I'm confident that it will work.
And I'm sure it will. And very quickly, there are going to be some on-campus developments. So the TUE nursery, the pavilion, will finally make way for something new on campus. Can you give us a little bit of the details behind that particular change?
Yeah, we still also keep improving our campus, of course, because we hope we can be there together sometime soon again. The pavilion was the first building of TUE. In 1956, it was 1957, I think it was there. And it was planned to be there for only like a couple of months or a couple of years. Now we're 65 years further than that. It's our lustrum year, coming year, from January on. And now it's the end of the pavilion. And the demolition has already started, and it will be a circular demolition. So parts of the pavilion will still be used also on our own campus.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's very nice. We can do it that way.
So the students...
It's a loss. Yeah. It's a loss. The Mens Agitat Molem, our motto, is also stone in the pavilion. That will be, we will keep that. But it's also nice that we can keep parts of our history being worked into other parts of the TUE.
I think that's nice to allow parts of the building to still be part of the infrastructure, and that students and staff can interact with those elements every day and see the history when they turn a corner or whatever building they're in, that they'll see and recognise that. So many thanks to Frank, to Nicole and to Ines for their insights with regards to research, to education and to operations at TUE in the face of one of the most testing years on record. But the best way to overcome difficulties is to push forward with a sense of purpose and responsibility. And we have the chance to do that with the new academic year. So it's time to officially launch the new academic year. And what I'd like to do is the following. I'd like to invite Director Frank Byens to join me at the big red button to officially launch the opening of the academic year. Okay, so we're at this big moment, important stage of the talk show and the opening of the academic year. So I'm going to leave you say a few words to mark this occasion.
Sure. Well, despite all the restrictions that we have today, I would like to wish you a very enjoyable and successful academic year. But perhaps most important of all, stay healthy.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a big countdown here. So I'm going to count down from 3 to 1, and then we're going to press this button and officially launch the opening of the academic year. So 3, 2, 1. Wow, and there you have it. It's official. The academic year at Eindhoven University of Technology is officially open for 2020-21. I'd like to say a huge thanks to all the guests that we've had here today, the Executive Board of the University, the Dean of the Bachelor College, we've had the Scientific Director of EIRES and State Secretary Stientje van Veldhoven. We hope that you've enjoyed this show, and thank you very much for tuning in, and please stay safe and stay healthy.